So we were, and you know, those were our orders. We have to keep these people back. And then after a few hours of that, we were told, okay, no one's going to come and get them, so destroy the vehicles, which basically, and this happened on more than one occasion, but the specific instance was light the fuel in the tankers on fire so that enough of it burns, so that it just burns away and so the Iraqis can't use it. Fire grenades into the engine blocks of the vehicles to destroy them, to make them unable to be driven anymore. And so here we were burning fuel in front of Iraqi civilians who had to wait for lines miles long just to get a little bit of fuel for their stove or for their vehicles. And it really brought home, on that instance and other instances, to me, the complete irony and absurdity of our presence in Iraq, and how, you know, I was getting letters from people saying, you know, we're so proud of you, thank you for what you're doing over there. And then at the same time, I'm looking at people in, you know, at these Iraqi people who I can't even look in the eye, because I feel so absurd and so ashamed that we're in their country risking our lives, putting their lives at jeopardy to basically guarantee a profit for Kellogg, Brown and Root, because the profit that they, I mean, you know, these vehicles, even though it represented livelihood and great wealth to the people of Iraq and to any, you know, these vehicles, they would $80,000 to $100,000 for one of these tankers full of fuel. That's a lot of money, and for the corporation, they just saw that as, you know, maybe worth life, but in the end, not even worth recovering that scrap of metal. So we were putting our lives on the line and risking violence towards the Iraqi people to protect hunks of metal, and then just destroying them at the end of the day. And this happened so many times, and we were all frustrated, but at the same time, we felt like, you know, what can we do? This is what we're being ordered to do. And it really was wearing on everyone's nerves, because, you know, another time we were guarding a trailer truck that had got stuck in the side of the road, and there were all these Iraqis on the other side of the road. We kept telling them, stay on the other side, stay on the other side. They kept trying to come across. Not my squad leader, but another squad leader in my platoon was getting really stressed out about it, and he said, and he was getting so frustrated that the Iraqis wouldn't stay over there, and he said, Sergeant Dougherty, the next person that tries to cross this road, I want you to shoot them. And I kind of thought he was joking, because it seemed kind of absurd to me, because we all knew that we would just end up abandoning it in a few hours anyway. And I said, you know, Sergeant, isn't that against our rules of engagement? Kind of tongue in cheek, because I, you know, kind of took it as a joke. And he said, you can't do your job. Go back and monitor the radio. So, you know, we're put in a situation where we're under such intense stress and pressure, where we're ready to kill people to keep them away from these vehicles, when we don't even care about the vehicles, because we know that we're just going to leave them. And that's the kind of situation we're put in day after day, week after week in Iraq. And on another instance, we had a flatbed truck that had been carrying a brand new ambulance to a military base that had tipped over, and the ambulance had fallen on its side. And we tried for hours to try to recover the ambulance, because other than it had fallen off the truck, it didn't seem to be that damaged. It was a brand new ambulance, and after hours, they just would not come and get it, and then we were given the order to destroy it and to burn the engine block again. And there were so many Iraqis, all the sheiks and the local leaders from all the villages, because they were interested in, you know, if you can't recover it, we'll find a way to get that out, because, you know, in Iraq and the area that we were, they didn't have ambulances. If someone got in a traffic accident or got hurt, the person driving by and would pick them up and put them in their car and take them to a doctor. And so we had to burn an ambulance in front of all these Iraqi people who don't even, you know, have a way to get to the hospital or have, you know, doctors to treat them when they get there. Another instance was when we had a trailer truck that had some produce in the back of it, and we were waiting and waiting, and finally said, okay, just abandon it and burn it. And, you know, I remember asking my platoon leader, you know, I said, well, sir, can we let the people come get the food off of it first? And he was like, well, no, Sergeant Dougherty, you know, it's just going to cause too much of a hassle, because then they're all going to have to come here. They'll probably start getting in the road. We're going to have to control them when they're here and then try to get them all back. So it's just not worth it. And, you know, in a way, I mean, he was right. It wouldn't have been worth it for us, because it would have caused a lot more work, a lot more danger, because we've been a lot closer to the people. And so in the end, we just ended up burning the produce in front of all of these Iraqis. And at this time, I was acting as the gunner. So I was in the gun turret with the SAW machine gun, pointing it at the people over by the dirt berm at the Iraqis to keep them back so that we could burn food in front of them. And, you know, that doesn't make you, when you're in the military, you want to feel proud and you want to feel good about what you're doing. And that didn't make me feel good. That made me feel really ashamed and really confused as to what we were even doing there. And, you know, I am proud of my military service, and I was proud of it, you know, at that point, but I wasn't proud of that, and I wasn't proud of really what we were doing in Iraq. The thing that I was proud of in Iraq is that at least we were able to keep each other safe, and that's really all I could say. You know, at least we brought everyone home and no one got killed. And if that's the best that I could say, and that's the best that I could take from it, and that's what I had to be proud of, but what we actually did, I was ashamed of. You know, that's very distressing to me, and just the way that we were kind of put out there to be bodyguards for Kellogg, Brown, and Root, who had these drivers who drove their trucks who were from countries like India and Pakistan and the Philippines and Tibet, and they were treated horribly. These what we call TCN, third country nationals, they lived in substandard conditions, worse than anything the U.S. contractors or American soldiers lived in. They were treated really bad and had to work much longer, had to just drive their vehicles whenever the convoy wanted to go. And I felt like I saw that as, you know, that those corporations also having a hand in dehumanizing people, because they were dehumanizing the people that they were making a profit off their backs as well, you know, holding their passports and forcing them to go on the, you know, to work in Iraq under these dangerous situations. And I think one of the things that stood out to me and that I think about a lot is for every U.S. service member we have in Iraq, you know, we have a contractor, pretty much. It's a pretty even ratio. So when you think about the total occupying force in Iraq, it's not just the U.S. military, it's U.S. corporations that are there on an equal level. And the one other thing I wanted to mention before I wrap it up is that when we were leaving, getting ready to leave in February of 2004, we went back to Kuwait, to Camp Arif John, to get ready to come back to the States. And we were put in these tent cities that were run also by KBR. And the tents, they're canvas tents, and our tents were completely covered with mold on the insides. I don't have pictures here, but I have pictures of the mold in the tents. It was thick, like black mold on these yellow tents, where you could see, because there are all these bunk beds set up in there that we were sleeping on, and they're really these horrible rickety bunk beds. So on places where the bunk beds were and the tent sagged down, and so people rubbed against it, there were just lines through this thick mold, and everyone was getting respiratory infections. And we wanted to sleep outside, but we couldn't sleep outside because we didn't have cots. They only had, you know, the bunk beds, and it was completely unhealthy place to live. It was disgusting. You know, it was this smell that never comes out of your clothes. And now all of this stuff that I have, that I had coming back from Iraq, it all smells like this mold. And this is what they were providing us, was this living condition where we couldn't even, you know, be in the place where we're supposed to live without getting sick, because it was so bad. And you know, it was just like, you know, suck it up, that's what it is, that's what you're going to have to deal with. And we had to live in those tents for a couple weeks, and I guess it was just very disappointing to see how so much of what's going on in Iraq is really being driven by a profit motive, and the actual human cost of the occupation is totally overlooked and totally insignificant for these corporations and for the government, who is totally supporting this policy of corporate corruption and profiteering off of the backs and the blood of Americans and the Iraqi people. So thank you.